Well, the perfect remedy to being too busy to do a serious law-based episode is to do another one of my movie reviews. And today we'll go even a little bit more off the beaten track, and instead of doing a movie review, do a review of an online streaming TV series, that being Amazon Prime's Fallout series. Hello, my name is Nicholas Wanspetter. I'm a lawyer in Stratford, Ontario, Canada, and welcome to Don't Talk TV. So I haven't done any Netflix or Amazon Prime series. I don't have Netflix, so I don't even know what's on Netflix, but I do have Amazon Prime. I know some people might be upset at that, but sometimes things you need can only be found on Amazon Prime, or the prices are so good it's hard to say no. We'll not get into that too deep, but for a long time, way back into the 90s, when the very first Fallout game came out, I've been a fan of that franchise since then. Well, I say the franchise, really, the first Fallout game is the only one I've ever played. Always really enjoyed it. I've always had a bit of a soft spot for the post-apocalyptic aspect of the science fiction genre. As viewers of this channel have no doubt guessed, I'm a big sci-fi guy when I'm not doing lawyer stuff. I think every movie that we've reviewed so far has been a science fiction film. So, being a fan of the Fallout game, being a fan of post-apocalyptic science fiction, when I heard that Amazon Prime was coming out with a Fallout series, I was of course intrigued. So, I gave it a try. As busy as I am, I haven't watched the whole series, but I've watched enough episodes. I think I'm on the second or third last episode of season 1. I think I've watched enough that I can give an opinion on the film. Now, some viewers, including viewers who I have a significant amount of respect for, might be upset at me for this, but on the whole, I actually quite like the series. It's not perfect. There's aspects that I don't like. There's a little bit too much adult kind of stuff in some ways, a little bit too much sexuality. Maybe that came up in some of the later Fallout games. I don't remember that being in the first Fallout game. Generally, I'm just not comfortable with that. I don't think that that's really something that's funny or something that's appropriate to be portrayed in cinema. Now, that said, there's nothing pornographic. It's conversations and innuendo and comments that you don't really see stuff like that. There's a few disturbing things. I suppose that's unavoidable in a post-apocalyptic series, but on the whole, I find it good. I really appreciate that the main character is not the stereotypical girl boss that we see in a lot of films, like the Disney Star Wars trilogy or their other films or some of the later Marvel films, where you have this indestructible female character who just beats up everyone, who has no character development because she's a master of everything from the beginning. The main character who's a vault dweller who has to go on various adventures on the surface, a girl named Lucy McLean. She's a character with plenty of room for development. She has strengths and weaknesses, so I appreciate that. I like the character Maximus. He's a Brotherhood of Steel, and I think they actually nailed the Brotherhood of Steel perfectly. For people who are fans of Fallout, you know what I'm talking about. For people who aren't fans, I mean, they're like these knights traveling around the post-apocalyptic wasteland. They're trying to collect technology. They don't want people to have it and misuse it. There's a character, a young squire named Maximus. People say he's stupid. I think they just did a really good job of portraying an individual who's completely ignorant, who hasn't been educated in a lot of things and is trying to bumble his way through the world without having that knowledge. And then there's also a character called the Ghoul. I think he's excellently done as well. Groggins is the last name of the actor. I forget his first name, might be John. I think the actors are all really good. The storyline has a lot of intrigue to it, and on the whole, I think it works well. Some people have complained about some of the sequences, especially battle sequences or combat sequences, being really goofy, but that's the way the Fallout game is. You can see, it's as if watching a game of Fallout. You can see, oh, that was a critical hit when you see a weapon that normally just leaves a small regular sized bullet hole in someone, leaves a huge gaping hole. That's exactly how combat works in the game Fallout. So overall, I think it's decent. I didn't mind watching it, not a masterpiece by any means, but especially for me with some nostalgia for the original Fallout game, I thought it was well done, and I loved the whole retro 1950s yet science fiction futuristic aesthetic to it. Now, how do I wrap this into a law-based channel? What's the legal aspect? Well, I would say that it's interesting seeing a post-apocalyptic world where government has largely been wiped down or broken down, and people are now trying to rebuild out of the ashes. Even though the series takes place, I believe, 200 or 300 years after the nuclear apocalypse, there's still not a lot of law and order. There's reference to a new California republic that had risen that was largely wiped out, again, by nuclear bombs. And you have these interesting interactions and interesting attempts at bringing law and order. You have various groups who will coalesce and try to bring order. Then, of course, you have the people living in vaults who live in this kind of 1950s idealistic society, which is also interesting. And it's interesting to see how commerce works when you don't have government involved. Bottle caps are the currency that people use, but bottle caps can't be printed the way money can be printed in our society in that futuristic world. So I find that very interesting as well. And on the whole, I think that the TV series and being based upon the games does a good job of showing what a society might look like after the complete collapse of the modern society we have and a reversion back to something much more primitive and savage, yet with technology in the mix as well. And you see some of that human nature, that fallen human nature, as Christians as Catholics like myself would refer to it, where people aren't naturally good. They're taught to be good by society, by societal norms, by morals, I would say by adherence to religious precepts as well. So you see that in that struggle for survival. So that's another reason why I like it. So again, not a masterpiece, but I found it worth watching in bits and pieces. I think I watch usually a half or a third of an episode on what I consider a lunch break, and then try to watch the rest later. So if you're into that type of genre, it's not a bad thing to watch in my view. This video, of course, is not legal advice. If you need legal advice, contact a lawyer. If I'm the lawyer that you want to contact, my contact information is listed below. We're always interested in suggestions of show topics, so please send those to the email address listed below, and I stress this email address listed below. If you go to my law practice website and you email directly to that, you won't get a response because different people monitor that email address. And if you found this video at all interesting, helpful, or informative, please consider liking, sharing, subscribing, and following us on social media.